There've always been mysteries surrounding Everquest. Tales of a clockwork dragon, quests that haven't been discovered, swords made of fire, horrors beneath the waters of Lake Rathe. This guy? But since then, a lot of these have been debunked or even proven. So I wanted to focus on some of my own personal EQ mysteries. Things that I've always had questions about but could never really explain. But in a world so large, where to begin? Right here with Velius! It's finally been released, and you know what that means, right? The drowned citizens are back in the Freeport sewers! Woo! Now when I tell someone that they swim worse than a drowned citizen, it has some real weight to it. But on a more serious note, I want to talk about this super important statue in Thurgoden. I have a theory about who this is, so if you'd all take out your Velius manuals and turn to page 14. Alright, brief lore lesson. Once upon a time, a bunch of dwarves were sailing around Norath and they got lost in a storm and were carried off to Velius. Now the leader of these dwarves was Colin Dain, and seeing the potential wealth and fortune of this long-lost continent, they landed there and were immediately attacked by giants. Long story short, Colin Dain sacrificed himself so that his people could escape, and they later founded the city of Thurgoden, and so on and so forth. These dwarves then adopted the name Colin Dain in honor of Colin Dain, combining his first and last names, and ever after, the leader of the dwarves was referred to as Dain. Here's some footage of Dain Frostreaver IV. Is he being permacamped? Are there people sitting there? Okay. Here's a picture of him. I believe this to be a double Tolkien reference. In Lord of the Rings Tolkien lore, the dwarves kind of passed on a name, Durin, much like the Danes of Everquest. And I won't bore you with the details of that. I could, but I won't. That's reference 1. Reference number 2 would be the actual name Dain. I'm sure you're all familiar with Dain Ironfoot, Nain's son, Lord of the Iron Hills, who slew Azog with his red axe at the Battle of Azanul Bazaar during the Third Age and later became king of Durin's folk after Thorin Oakenshield was killed at the Battle of Five Armies. So I think this is Colin Dain. Seems like a pretty good assumption to me. He even has his magical pick, Snow Chipper, in hand. Nerd! Or you know what? Now that I think about it, it's probably just Brel Ceralis. Here's another statue that's always bothered me. Why is this a hill giant? Shouldn't it be an ice giant? Well, no. Besides the fact that an ice giant statue would probably look a lot like a normal ice giant, this is actually the homeland of the giants. After that fiasco with Ralazek, the gods put a curse on all of his creations. Ogres and goblins were stricken dumb. I don't know what happened to orcs. Maybe they were given red eyes and green skin and kilts. But the lush green land of the giants was covered with ice and snow, and the giants that didn't flee their homeland slowly turned into ice monsters. Now I know what you're all thinking. That explains the giants, but what happened to this guy? Well, I don't know. But don't worry, Goblin King. I'll save you!
Groundfall King.
Druid rings, everyone's favorite thing. Besides being an obvious Stonehenge reference, I still have no clue as to what these are or where they came from. As far as I know, there's no lore about them, but I mean, druids probably made them, right? There's certainly enough to get the job done. They're made out of giant, dark stones with sharp, evil-looking red symbols. That doesn't seem very druid-like, which leads me to believe that something isn't right with them. On closer inspection, I began to notice some strange things about the druid marker stones. Okay, so follow me on this. A lot of the druid rings appear to be broken down, while others are perfectly intact. I thought that was weird, so I decided to start marking these down on a map, not really thinking anything would come of it. Then I began to notice that there's a lot of druid rings that can't be ported to, and I mean a lot. So I started adding those as well. The living dead can be found at a lot of druid rings, again leading me to believe that there's something very wrong with them. Rainbow dragon butterflies. Some zones are particularly strange, like the Rathe Mountains. There's 2 druid rings. Look at the unkempt druid's marker stone. It's huge! It has those things from the inside on the outside. In Noctulos there's a druid ring and 3 druid poles. And what are these poles? After locating every druid ring and pole in the game and mapping out their locations and the zones they're in, I discovered that I was wasting a lot of my time and that none of this means anything and that the developers are crazy people. Speaking of the Rathe Mountains, what a strange place. There's sphinxes, lizard people, dragons, cyclops, giants, undead, giant undead, and amongst all of these, giant arm statues. Or are they? I assumed that some past civilization had made them, but these mountains didn't even exist until a terrible event unfolded. Ready for another lore theory? Okay, so during the Age of Monuments, the followers of Rathe, who seem kinda dopey now, but back then they grew to be very powerful, and they eventually opened up portals to the Planes of Power and challenged the gods themselves, specifically the Rathe Council for some reason, in their plane of Earth. The Rolosian army ultimately lost this battle as they couldn't kill the Rathe in their own plane, but Rathe was so pleased with his creations that he led a second attack against the council and was victorious. Having captured some of the council, he brought them back to Norath and began executing them. It's said that when the bodies of the fallen gods struck Norath, mountains shot out of the earth, and nearby, having seen their brethren fall to the warlord, a lake was filled with the tears of the remaining council members. Hence the name Lake Rathtyr. Rathtyr? I don't know how to say anything. I'm making it all up. I don't know. So here's my question. Are these arms all that's left of the fallen Rathe Council members? I'll let you decide. But the answer is yes. Also, there's a third arm all the way over here. How long has that been there? After playing EQ for years, I still managed to discover new stupid things in this game. I mean, look at it. It blends in with the walls perfectly and it looks kind of like those rocks that are everywhere. And there's no reason to actually go over to it. It's not a marker for anything. Nothing spawns there. It's not even on any maps. Someone must have decided to just stick it over here, and that's amazing. From now on, when I play, I'll be here, at this arm, giving it a purpose. I'm having a great time. So what else is there to talk about? Muxen's sword? In Kara Isle? It's just a sword that isn't documented anywhere on the internet. That's kind of strange, but pretty boring. You know, I've always been fascinated with the mimic in Runny Eye. But that's just a stupid chest with teeth. No one cares. How about those wall mouths in Guck? Is that like a thing in the wall, or did the Froglocks paint that on there? Ah, that's dumb too. Although modern games have a severe lack of creepy mouths in the walls. The clock! Why is it at 4 o'clock? Why? But seriously, if you've looked at it a little closer than this, you'll notice that there's some markings on the side of it. Now my first thought was, there's no way the creators of Everquest actually took the time and cared enough to actually have it say something. Okay, so after watching National Treasure, printing out the Rosetta Stone, and researching Google Images for 47 hours, I discovered that these markings are some kind of combination of Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, and Norse ruins. And when you figure that nonsense out, you can read right up here, Akanon Gnomes. I mean, of course, who else would have made such a mechanical machine? But what I love more than that is the text found below it. Sony EQ. They didn't write Quinos. They specifically had this text backwards so that it would reveal the Easter egg. I don't even know what to say anymore. This game keeps throwing 15-year-old secrets and arms at me, and I don't know how to... But wait, are there any other places in EQ where you can find strange ruins? Well, I searched everywhere, and I mean everywhere, and I found one other spot. The EC Tunnel, specifically in the hands of Druids. A lot of these symbols appear on the blade of the Nature Walker's scimitar. This one was harder to figure out because the small pixelated text is almost impossible to read, and there's a few runes that I just couldn't find, but you can basically fill in the gaps. It says, "May Earth and Sky protect you, KTR." And I assume the KTR stands for Karana the Rainkeeper, but the C and the K seem to be the same symbol, so I don't really know. On to the next thing. I'd like to take this time to talk about the giant gears of Steamfont for a second. Normally when I try to bring this stuff up to people, they never seem to understand what I'm talking about. These things are massive. I would even say comically large. If they helped power some kind of machine, it'd have to be the size of an entire zone. Or maybe several zones, or West Karana. To the best of my knowledge, they aren't mentioned at all in-game, but perhaps this segment I stumbled upon from the Kunark Strategy Guide is the only clue we'll ever get to their origins. Many gnomes put new inventions on display. The most noted was a great clockwork spider that malfunctioned immediately after being unveiled. The known creator of this failed project still answers to this date for the chaos that it caused. I know it was you. I know what you've done, and you won't get away with it. Opal Darkbriar is a weird NPC. She might just appear to be the High Elf Wizard Guildmaster in the Academy of Arcane Science, but she's also the Dark Elf Cleric Guildmaster in the East Freeport slums? What? This nicely dressed man in the ill-begotten sewers seems to be the only guy who knows what's going on.
Greetings, beware the corruption that has infected Freeport. Even the Tower of Arcane Scientists is not safe from the slimy hands of the dismal rage. I fear Opal Darkbriar is not what she seems and is darkening the minds of her apprentices.
What a creepy weirdo in the sewers. If you actually go and talk to her, she says, "You're not a member of the wizard class. Be gone." What does it mean? Alright, I'm putting an end to this. I could go on forever, which I guess is a credit to this game, isn't it? You know, the more I look around and explore EQ, the more I realize just how much effort was put into it. I used to find dead ends or strange pots or seemingly meaningless NPCs and think just that these things weren't finished or didn't have any thought put into them. And the more I question these things, the more I discover how wrong I was. So the next time you're mindlessly grinding EXP or farming plat, take a second to look around, explore a little, go on an adventure, have some fun. This game is amazing, and there's more to it than just raiding or gathering items, in my stupid opinion. As for me, well, I plan to keep on learning and finding meaning in everything. I still don't know much about Kunark, and I really want to talk about the history of the deserts of Ro. Ever wonder why this thing is here? Well, there's a reason for it. Or how about the Oasis of Mar? Why is it called that? There's plague inns, this stone, 4-frame wall-fire animations and Runii, this guy's face, this weird glitchy shelf and Soleil, what is it? The human faction? What's that all about? Terrorantula? I've never seen them. Egyptian scarab statues, secret fire pots, cat people lore?